Something that a lot of you have probably never seen before. This is what's called NASCAR SimRacing. It came out in February of 2005 for the PC, and the reasons it came about were quite interesting. After EA acquired the exclusive rights to make NASCAR games, and Papyrus could no longer make PC-based sims, what ended up happening is that EA decided, hey, there's a gap in the market, and we're actually going to try and make our own PC racing sim. So as you can probably figure out from me just like quickly going through the menus here, this game is actually based on the ISI motor engine, which powers R-Factor and a lot of your favorite racing sims, and is based upon the 2004 Nextel Cup, Busch, and Craftsman Truck Series seasons, as they were featured in NASCAR 2005 Chase for the Cup. It's the same 3D car models, it's the same liveries. They've actually removed a lot of the alternate liveries that weren't part of the 04 season. But they did add Jeremy Mayfield and Ken Schrader, so it's one of the most complete driver rosters I've actually seen of any major NASCAR game release from this time period. Obviously, one of the odd things about playing Chase for the Cup is with the abundance of Dodge advertisements in the main menu and in loading screens, and how much of a role Dodge plays in career mode. People found it very odd that Mayfield was missing from the game. He's in this one. I'm just doing a lazy qualifying attempt and a couple of laps in a single race with the 2005 Nextel Cup Series season, which was free DLC for this game, came out a couple months after launch in the version 1.0.2.9 update. And it's really not the 05 season, it's more like EA had copy and pasted the 2004 cars into a new folder, and just every Dodge team was given the new Charger body, which was brand new for that year. But it's still all the old 2004 liveries. It's weird.
The road to the Nextel Cup Championship is both daring and demanding. Fast tracks, tight turns, and lots of traffic. Today it is all of that and more compressed into one tiny half mile. The Bristol Motor Speedway, the most electrifying half mile in motorsports. EA Sports saved you the best seat in the house for the Food City 500.
So unlike Chase for the Cup on consoles, this game actually has like a proper pre-race introduction. As well as a grid walk, though both are just common features of ISI motor at that time, and they can be found in F1 Challenge 99 to 02 as well.
And here's the starting lineup for the race. Starting up front, the number 24 car and the number 19 car. Starting from row 2, the number 5 car and the number 48 car. Row 3, the number 16 car and the number 2 car. On row 4, the number 42 car and the number 97 car.
So to give you some brief history and why I'm playing this game and why I feel it's relevant to upload a video, about this game some 16 years or 17 years after it's come out. This game, as well as NASCAR Thunder 2004 and 2003 on the PC, are what introduced me to the idea that ISI motor-powered sims are not good for stock car racing. As I've mentioned in other videos on the topic, ISI-powered stock car sims really all suffer from the same handful of issues. There's some weird logic issues that come into place, such as up here, you'll see the pace car pull off, and within a couple hundred feet, the game will start bitching at me to catch up to the pace car. Even though the pace car is on pit road and we're on 1 to green, there's a warning right there. The game also has issues with collision physics. It's tough to knock a car around off the AI line that they're running, and the AI themselves are just super unrealistic and given a bunch of hacks to run one of 2 distinct train track strips around the track, and we'll see it here. So we're starting front row outside, and I want you to pay attention to this. We get roasted. We actually fall back to 4th or 5th here. Biffle's going to go by us, McMurray's going to go by us, and then Paul Menard, who shouldn't actually be in the Cup Series, and Jimmy Johnson are going to get tour bumpers. So I just want you to kind of take in these opening laps and how detrimental it is for me to run the outside line here. On top of running the outside line, for whatever reason, the AI are checking up majorly going into each corner, so I'm gaining this absurd amount of ground on them for no reason when the low line should just be decimating even more than it already is. Now what starts happening here with McMurray going high is that with the ISI motor, the AI are basically just programmed to run in 2 distinct strips, but the AI also don't know how to differentiate between a fast line and a slow line. So like McMurray had no reason to run the top there, and he just gave the spot away to Paul Menard. But what's more interesting here is that McMurray is actually holding with Paul Menard, and he's driving away from us. So when we got roasted on the start, running the high line, within a couple corners we were down to 5th or 6th or 7th place. McMurray is now running the high line with just an insane amount of grip, and he is now pulling away from people, as is Tony Stewart. So keep in mind, this race in particular is the 2004 Food City 500. This is old Bristol. This is where you just sat on the bottom moving people out of the way because the top line didn't work basically at all. It wouldn't be for a few years until the track was repaved and the top would kind of work and you could ride up near the wall and get huge runs off the corner. The Highline is not supposed to work. It very obviously didn't work when I went up there, and now you'll see McMurray, who just dropped down low again, Tony Stewart, they're having no problems running up there and they're pulling away from us. This, to me, as both a PC sim racer and a NASCAR fan, this is the kind of stuff and the attention to detail stuff that really pisses me off, because as a fan, when I watch the race, I hope that what I learned from watching the race translates over to a sim. When stuff like this happens in front of you, it just makes it feel completely retarded. It makes you want to kind of ditch the game. Now, as you can see here, we almost run into Paul Menard because they check up so hard for the corner. So not only do the AI run in these two distinct strips with the outer line basically having grip hacks, when they do run the inside preferred line, which you want to run here around Bristol, they brake too early. And it seems like they're given a random AI boost of speed on corner exit, because my setup I think is pretty good, and they just drive away from me. So you have this AI racing experience where the player is driving a completely different line, using completely different throttle inputs, using completely different throttle rhythm, braking points, and turn points than the player. You'll notice I'm actually turning into the corner quite early because that's just what you do at Bristol. The AI cars, by comparison, check up really hard and turn in super late. So it results in this kind of like rubber banding where like I basically almost run them over on corner entry and then they shoot away from me and they run lines that I'm not capable of running. And you can see the same things happening behind me in my mirror. Rusty Wallace is somehow pulling away from Kevin Harvick on the outside, a line that just doesn't work. It doesn't work in real life, it doesn't work in this game. It didn't work at any point in time during this Bristol configuration, and yet it seems to be fast. And what you're seeing right now in front of us is an extension of the AI's decision making. Jeff Gordon has no reason to run the high line, or I guess the middle line right now, because that's the slowest way around the track from a geometric standpoint, and he's still continuing, or at least now he finally dropped down, but he was still continuing to do it for laps on end. There was really no reason for him to be up there. And now, as we're trying to launch a pass, this makes things really frustrating from a driver's perspective, because I have to force my car in there and basically risk a wreck every single corner because his throttle application point's completely different than mine, his braking application point's completely different than mine, and I basically have to pray we don't wreck. A good AI line, which you can code in yourself, or I shouldn't say code in, but you can record yourself in NASCAR 03, you can actually get the AI running the identical braking points compared to you, and the end result is amazing to race with. But for whatever reason, I've seen in a lot of different racing sims, not just in oval racing sims, it very rarely matches what the player is capable of, and it results in these really weird, frustrating situations like this where I'm trying to like dive bomb Jeff Gordon, and I've kind of got his door, and I kind of force him up a groove, but then the AI grip helpers take over and he rockets away from me. And this is just occurring lap after lap here, which is just, again, it's just frustrating. When I play any sort of NASCAR sim, this is the kind of shit I look for, and this is the kind of stuff that decides whether I uninstall the game or not within the first hour, because this, you know, it kind of looks okay out my windshield now that, you know, the pack is thinned out and we're all running single file, which is pretty typical at a short track. But the actual racing itself, when I have to go try and overtake a car, it's just kind of retarded and unpredictable, and I'm forcing myself to do things that I wouldn't actually do in a normal car. And at that point, instead of just driving the race in a natural fashion, you're just trying to cheat the AI and see, okay, where are these guys extremely off pace where I can just throw it in there and force the AI logic that dictates whether they give up the position or not will activate. Now, the one question a lot of people are going to have is that being based on the ISI motor engine, the major saving grace for R Factor or any games on this engine is how well it usually drives. I'm here to actually inject some reality into that situation. Because R Factor is very modular and the tires are really just governed by tire files. They're text files that you just enter a bunch of numbers into based on the, the tire firmness and what you want the slip angle to be. Any developer can do anything with the ISI motor engine. You can have a great feeling stock car, as you do in ARCA SimRacing. You can have a really arcade-ish feeling stock car, like you do in NASCAR 08 and 09 with these crazy slip angles. And then you can have something like NSR, which is kind of in the middle. There are times where I think this game feels okay, and it's beneficial to roll on the throttle and let the rear end bite, which I find is really satisfying, such as that corner exit right there. When the car bites, it feels pretty good. Maybe a bit too gripped up, but it's something I could more or less live with. But the car often feels like it's floating, and you can get these really crazy slip angles going and catch the car extremely quickly, which makes the car feel really light on its feet, which is not what a 3,000-pound stock car should feel like. And it ends up making the game feeling really simplified, and that's basically the primary reason why this game obviously never took the throne from NASCAR Racing 2003 season. With all these issues, with the AI issues, with the car feeling light, with some of the contact issues, people gave up on it within basically an afternoon of it launching. They had this exact same experience and went, no, the AI in NASCAR 03 is better, the cars handle better in NASCAR 03, I'm taking this back to the store. And that, in a nutshell, is ISI-powered stock car sims.